Hello!
And welcome to a vlog of Two Tales. I'm Bryce O'Neill,
And I'm Austin Miller. We write stories back and forth to each other.
and every week we give you a writer's commentary on the short story that we wrote.
My videos are going to be released on Mondays.
And mine are going to be on Thursdays. Many of you have been wondering about our French friend in the back.
This is Peter.
Austin wanted to name him Peter, and I thought it's French, so it should be something like Pierre. So we came up with the compromise, Peter. If for no other reason, you should come and watch these videos for that guy. He's the best.
He's the inspiration for us all. Before you go any further, make sure you read my story Silence by clicking on the link below.
You can also find the link to my story, Poor Girl, in the description. The video for that will be up on Thursday. So I'll leave you guys in the loving, gentle, caressing hands of Austin here. They'll only creep you out for a little while, and then you get used to them.
Alright, well let's get this train a-rolling. Before you watch this video, make sure you read my story Silence. There's a link in the description box. The prompt that Bryce had given me was...
You're in a library. After hours.
So here's the summary of my story. After the end of the world, a man holds himself up in a library. He lives out each day just doing what he can to survive. But is he really alone? When Bryce first gave me the prompt, I was a little uneasy. It seemed like a very open and broad idea, and I wasn't sure how I felt about that. But as I started outlining and going over what I wanted to write about, I realized that this could be one of the coolest stories that I have ever written. Now, going through my story, a lot of what is written down is fairly cliche. You have the man at the end of the world, a plague that mysteriously comes and wipes everyone out, him finding out that he's not actually alone, him growing attached to said someone dying, and finally, a moral to the story. But I was trying to be cliche on purpose. I wanted this to be a story that everyone could connect with that had a calming sense of familiarity with it. It seems like something that everyone's heard before, but it's still new. It starts out with the main protagonist describing what had happened to the world. It was a sickness that killed everyone that no one could explain. I don't go too far into it, just give you broad symptoms and things like that, but catching this sickness meant only one thing. You had a death sentence. And it seems like he was the only one who didn't catch it. The only time he would leave the safety of his home was to make sure he got food from the grocery store, even if that meant crawling over bodies of people begging him for help. That was a really big factoid in the characterization of the narrator. He would rather ignore the pleas of the dying just to maintain this semblance of being a lone wolf. But as the days wore on, he found himself getting lonelier and lonelier, hating the silence that he once took comfort in. Silence is the biggest factor in this story. It's even the name. Because to me, silence only means one thing: loneliness. He talks about how debilitating silence is and how it can send you into utter madness. He was a loner that only wanted conversation. All he wants is a distraction from this hell that has opened itself around him. A distraction from the silence of a dead world. And while he wants this conversation, he has already accepted that it probably won't happen. And then he meets Amanda. There is another person at the end of the world, someone he can finally talk to. But there's a twist. Amanda is a mute, but he learns to cope with it anyway. He teaches himself sign language from the books in the library so that he can communicate with her. Have conversations even if they aren't verbal. And with her there, even though there's no actual talking, the silence disappears, and he's no longer alone. So when she gets sick, he knows that it's coming to an end, no matter what she tells him. He knows that his world is going to be silent again. When she's lying on her deathbed, she signs to him that she loves him, and he says he loves her too. And right before she dies, she mouths the words, "I know." That's an important scene because that right there, those mouthing of those words, was the closest thing in the entire story he ever got to conversation. In the end, he realizes she has made his whole world loud. Even at the end of times, even where he could be the last man alive, everything was loud. While silence is the main one, there are other important metaphors and events in the story. If you hadn't noticed, I capitalized every time I said the word end. My reasoning behind that was that the end had stopped being just a word. The end was an event. Almost every single time I said the word end, it was synonymous with the end of the world, with one exception. The narrator says that he knew it was Amanda's end, and even there I capitalized the word. My reason for that was it was still an event to him. The end of her was one of the biggest events in his life, taking precedence even over the end of the world. That's saying that losing the one person he ever loved meant more to him than the death of the earth. The last subject I want to talk about in my story is time. At several points in the story, he mentions he stopped keeping track of the days that went by. There's just simply no reason to. But the day she dies is when he starts keeping track of time, just so that he can honor her memory each year. I put that in there just to show how unimportant time really is unless you have events to keep track of. And the only event that mattered enough to keep track of to him was the loss of Amanda. And that's silence. Thank you for reading my story and watching my video.
I have returned.
Make sure you comment, subscribe, tell us your thoughts, tell us what you're doing today, tell us how your dog looks, all of those things.
Especially the dog. I hope you enjoyed Austin's video. You can see mine on Thursday.
And have a wonderful week.
You're beautiful, and we're gonna write about you.